odds been against me since, I don't know, since I was 5, 6 years old, so, we're talking about basketball here, it seems like I come up here and tell you guys this all the time. The odds has been stacked up against me since I was, a adolescent. So, I put our team in position to try to win a championship, to compete for a championship. And, it's my job to make sure that we're as focused, as laser focused as possible, do my job, and continue to instill confidence into my teammates.
Down 0-2, LeBron has been here before. Welcome to SI Now. I'm Ryan Assault, along with Robin Lundberg and Rohan Nadkarni. And guys, the NBA Finals shifts to Cleveland for Game 3 after the Warriors' Game 2 win, up 2-0. Rohan, LeBron's done this before. He's won 3 out of, he's 3-4 in down 2-0 series in the playoffs over his career. What can he do? What can the Cavs do, though, more importantly, as a team to get back in this series?
I'm not sure there's much more they can do than what they're currently doing. You want to say, hey, clean up your defensive issues. So many miscommunications in the first half last night. But this has been a bad defensive team all year. You can't just expect them overnight to fix their defensive issues. I don't know if they can play much better than they played in the first 2 games. They've kept it close.
Yeah, I was actually impressed with what they did in Game 2, like hanging around after all these runs, because the bottom line is the talent gap in this series is enormous. The Warriors roster is just so much better. If you're going to the nuts and bolts of it, I would try maybe trapping Curry like they used to. They went away from that once Durant got there, but when Kevin Love's involved in that action, maybe he traps because you can't have him on an island against Steph Curry. And then maybe you go all in on defense, and sacrifice some offense and hope LeBron can create and put your best defensive lineup out there, which might mean sitting down Kevin Love at times.
I agree. Yeah, I also think maybe you give Kyle Korver a little bit earlier burn in the game and they're bringing him in kind of late. Rodney Hood, I mean, do you just try it at this point?
Rodney Hood was so bad. The problem with Korver is that the Warriors take him away better than anybody else.
Here's the thing. I kept thinking this last night, guys. For 7 quarters, this has been very, very competitive, which makes me think that, gosh, if the Cavs just had one more player, this would be an epic series that we're seeing. Obviously, though, when you guys got J.R. Smith and Larry Nance Jr. in there trying to make big plays that they're incapable of making, we got a 2-0 series.
You also changed the scenery. Going back to Cleveland can help. Now, speaking of J.R. Smith, the Warriors fans gave him MVP chance, and some new video was released that showed just how distraught LeBron James was when it was confirmed to him that the Cavs did have a timeout when J.R. grabbed the rebound, and it wasn't called. Here it comes. Here it is. Oh, the moment. Wait for it. Oh,
man.
I mean, how much does the Game 1 loss, the way that went down, still linger?
I do think that they kind of got over the Game 1 loss. I thought the telling moment was when they went down 9 points in the first quarter of Game 2. And a lot of people were saying they look broken, their spirit's broken. The Warriors are about to open the floodgates, and they bring it back down to a 4-point lead. I do think they showed a lot of mental toughness in Game 2, that they were able to withstand all these runs. They kept cutting it back. It has to have some effect. I don't know how much it lingers, during an actual possession, but I do think LeBron and a lot of Cavs know in their heart of hearts, we gave away maybe our best chance to win a game in this series.
As we've mentioned, it's very tough to try and stop the Warriors, especially when you're a big guy switched out on Steph Curry. Afterwards, Tristan Thompson was asked about that scenario and didn't exactly love the line of questioning.
Next question. Tristan,
Now, Curry, of course, was basically unguardable in Game 2 as he set an NBA Finals record with 9 3-pointers. It's also marked the 6th time in Curry's career that he scored 30 or more points in a Finals game. 10 other players have done that in history. All of them were named the NBA Finals MVP. Rohan, is Steph grabbing this Finals MVP right by the horns here?
I think this is his best shot. I thought LeBron had a case to win that first year Golden State won. I do think this is probably Curry's best shot to win Finals MVP. I don't want to count out, LeBron if he scores, a couple of other 40-point games. Maybe he gets 50 again, but this is Curry's best shot.
I think if the Cavs can win 2 games, LeBron could be the MVP even in a loss, but if it keeps going this way, it's going to be Steph. And he just puts fear in you.
Yes.
When you see him catch the ball, no matter where he's from, he's throwing rainbow arcing shots that are landing splash all net. The guy is unbelievable, and to me, the most dangerous player who's ever played that position.
Yeah, without a doubt. I saw an incredible stat last night. I don't remember the exact number, but you look at his threes, and obviously he's shooting incredible from the outside. I think he was something like over 70% in the restricted area. I mean, the guy's playing like Shaquille O'Neal in the paint. I mean, his three-pointers are just so threatening that he can also get to the rim whenever he wants.
You know what might be the best compliment you could pay LeBron James? That Steph Curry isn't the best player in the world.
Yes.
Because in a normal universe, how's this guy not better than everybody else?
It's just unreal. I mean, the way he bends Cleveland's defense, there's just no answer for him.
And that's what's disturbing. They forced him into a couple of bad shots last night. They all went in. And if that's going to happen, yeah, the MVP is going to be
He's changed
his.
what a bad shot is.
Exactly. Yeah, I guess picking it up, falling away from 35 feet is a good shot for Steph Curry. Of course, this is the 4th straight finals for the Warriors. If Golden State goes on to win, it would be 3 rings for Steph, 2 for Durant. Robin, legacy-wise, we got to start talking about it here. Where does that place in history for these guys?
This drives me crazy because people are already starting to ring count for the Warriors, and I don't really put much significance in a ring this year or a ring last year because not all rings are created equal. Of course the Warriors are going to win the championship, right? Duh! Anything else would be a colossal failure. So I would say Steph's first ring would be worth more than the next 2 combined if they win, and I would think the same about Kevin Durant with 0 rings as I would with him having 2 rings. And that's taking nothing away from those guys. They're great, great players. But you put them on the same team with Draymond Green and with Klay Thompson, who once scored 37 points in a quarter, the obvious end result is going to be a championship. So you don't get extra credit for that.
What do you think, Rohan? Does the super team aspect of the Warriors dilute the finals and their talk about legacy and history?
I think it's on an individual basis, right? If I'm being completely honest, I think it dilutes it for Durant the most. If you look at Durant, he almost knocked this team off when they'd won 73 games. His 2 rings, I think maybe 30 years from now, people won't care as much, but in the moment, you kind of saw it last year when he won, right? He didn't have that outpouring of emotion that most players of caliber have when they win that first ring. It's because it was expected. It didn't have that kind of same gravitas to it that Robin alluded to. So I think Durant's legacy takes the most hit. I do think Steph, the rings aren't created equal, but Steph being the engine of this and the way he's changed the league, I think the ring count's important for him.
Well, I think all of Steph's accomplishments, when you're looking at them as a total picture, do. But it's not like I'm going to go, oh, wow, Steph's so much better because they won these rings. He was already unreal and unbelievable. So it's not taking away from their ability as players or what they've done individually. It's just I'm not now thinking of them in a whole different light. Like maybe you would have about Dirk Nowitzki when the Mavericks won that ring in 2011.
Absolutely. And you look at it, the way we talk about LeBron is now at this point, when the odds are stacked so far against him, you say, okay, does the ring really matter? I think you can have that same conversation with Golden State. When it's so in their favor, how much does it really matter?
Plus, the ring that LeBron won in Cleveland probably counts more for him legacy-wise than the couple he won in Miami. So, again, not all rings are created equal. Now, another player in the midst of that is Klay Thompson, who is really tough, man. I mean, playing through a high ankle sprain, playing well. Do we undersell how good that guy is, considering he's playing with Steph and Durant?
I do think he gets undersold a little bit. I love Klay Thompson. I think the best thing about Klay Thompson is his attitude, right? This guy, he doesn't care about touches. He doesn't care about dribbles. He doesn't care about shots. Just his general approach to the game. He's such a laid-back guy. I think, if he wanted the spotlight more, if he craved it more, he could have it. He's really just such an underrated part of the machine. I mean, you saw he's played in 100 consecutive playoff games for them. It's a record. He's such a great talent. And his attitude, I think, is such a key part of their chemistry because he could have a chance to wreck it, but he never lets it get to that point.
You guys talked about all rings are not equal. All dynasties are not equal. And what we're seeing here is how important Klay Thompson is. I mean, take Klay away from this team. That dynamic changes quite a bit. He's the buffer. He's the guy, the third option that, frankly, not all teams that win championships have, and that's why they don't become dynasties. I think you have to have a Klay Thompson in order to go on a run like
this.
He's
the 3-and-D god, right? They call Chris Paul point guard. 3-and-D god, I think, is fair for Klay Thompson. Now, another story has been the officiating throughout the series. We know what happened at the end of Game 1. But even last night, to me, the thing that sticks out is the way LeBron is officiated. Generally, a player of his stature, the joke is they get all the whistles, and it feels like you can open field tackle him, and he still doesn't get the benefit of the doubt.
Well, he's kind of getting that Shaq whistle now, right, where refs are so unsure because he initiates so much contact. He's such a big body. Contact for him looks different than, say, contact for Steph Curry. You say, does he need this whistle? There was always that egregious blown call, on the outlet pass last night that Ty Lue got teed up for. I do think the officiating has been a story not only this series but all season long. I think anecdotally, just being on Twitter, I think you see that people are more upset with the officiating than ever before. Is that an echo chamber? Are there really problems? But I do think it's something that everybody needs to look at. I don't know if it's adding another ref, if that's really going to solve it, but there have been some serious issues. Again, we're not saying that the Cavs would be up 2-0 in this series if the officiating was perfect, but I agree with you that sometimes you're seeing LeBron contact going to the rim and he's not getting calls. It's very surprising.
Yeah, and it's a theme that's bubbling. I mean, when you blow a call like they did in Game 1, that's going to be a storyline for however long this series goes. And a guy like Ty Lue, who doesn't get very animated, gets teased up. You know, something's going on there. 48 minutes for LeBron in Game 1, 44 in Game 2. He would have played the whole game if it stayed closer. Is there anything more that can be asked of LeBron than he's already doing?
No, I mean he's at max effort right now. It's a shame because I think in the second quarter last night, LeBron mentioned I got tired once. I think it happened in the second quarter. You could see it, towards the end of the first half, he was kind of running out of gas. What more could be asked of him is his shooters making shots. I mean, he got guys great looks yesterday. At the same time, do you expect Jeff Green to make threes? I mean, I don't know what you're going to do. I think he's doing all that he physically can.
I sort of say it jokingly, but it's true. The one criticism of LeBron is now, why doesn't he drive to the rim every time, be the best defensive player on every single possession while playing the entire game? Yeah. Do everything, every play, every time, or else something's wrong with you.
Yeah, it's absurd what's asked of him, and that's kind of the effort it takes in the series, and I just don't know if it's physically possible for him to do what is necessary to beat this team by himself.
He's Rohan Nadkarni. You can catch him on Crossover TV. Meanwhile, the World Cup starts next week. Of course, the United States isn't in it, but tiny Iceland is. Grant Wahl traveled all over Iceland to discover how a country of just 350,000 people was able to qualify. You can watch the whole 30-minute documentary on SITV, but here's a preview.
So there's no official finish line to Route 1 when you circle the perimeter of Iceland. So much of it is about the visuals and the scenery. And it's like nothing else I've ever seen on Earth, to be honest. And yet, it's also about the people here. Connection that they have with this soccer team that now transcends sports completely. The only way to really get a full sense of that connection is to drive around the country and talk to people about their connection to the team.
We always said when they are doing well, it's our boy, it's our girl. We all own this team.
It's something really special that sport can achieve in really rare, really neat circumstances. I am in Iceland. I have never seen anything like this before.
Well, as we enter the third month of the baseball season, a few surprise teams have started to make some noise. Let's talk some baseball now with SI senior writer Ben Ryder. And Ben, the Phillies, one of those surprise teams this year that we've seen. They came into the weekend 8 games over 500 before getting swept by the Giants. And things not all that good in Philly this weekend. Jake Arrieta calling out his teammates. Scott Kingery went after, saying the defensive scheme. He had some words for how they were playing their defensive scheme against the Giants. Called it a horse bleep series. What do you think of his comments? This is a guy who's an ace, but his first year with the Phillies.
Well, I love it on 2 levels. One, I think he has a point about their defensive schemes. If you looked at things like shift, run, saved, the Phillies actually aren't employing their defensive shift very effectively. In fact, by some metrics, they have given up more runs due to the shift than they've saved. So perhaps he has a point on a technical level. But I also think he's trying to do something culturally, right? This is a very young team, probably having success a bit earlier than they expected. You need these veteran guys to kind of lay down the law sometimes, keep everyone in line and on the same page. That's what Carlos Beltran did, for example, for last year's Astros. That's what a guy like David Ross did for the Cubs the year before that. Every champion has these veteran guys who keeps everybody on the same page and kind of criticizes them when they need it. I think that's what Jake Arrieta is doing here for the very good Phillies.
Obviously, a guy who comes in with the track record, the resume of winning with the Cubs, that holds a lot of weight in a young clubhouse like the Phillies. Speaking of feuds, how about the Yankees situation? They get rained out in Baltimore over the weekend. That game gets rescheduled for July 9th. Well, right after that, ESPN, that's a doubleheader on the 9th. ESPN after that decides to flex the Yankees into Sunday Night Baseball against the Jays the night before. The Yankees are screaming bloody murder here. Does someone need to step in and look at this and say, this doesn't really work? This isn't fair to a New York team to play Sunday night in Toronto and then have a doubleheader on Monday in Baltimore.
I mean, not really. Like, it's kind of unfortunate that there's been so many rainouts for the Yankees. I think they've already been rained out 7 times this year. But I guess you can go back to the future and wonder why they have a $1 billion stadium that doesn't have a retractable roof on it. I mean, maybe a little too late for that. Again, I think situations like this will raise calls to shorten the season to 154 games so that in the inevitability that something like this happens, you have a bit more room to build in games. But I think, criticizing ESPN for wanting the best game on Sunday Night Baseball, they probably won't get much traction there. And let's be honest, the Yankees are rolling so well here, I don't think it'll have much of an impact on their bottom line.
The price you pay for being good. 3 games in 24 hours coming up for New York. All right, AL West, interesting. Surprisingly, the Mariners are in first place all of a sudden as the Astros lose a series to the Red Sox over the weekend. Let's start with the Mariners first here. How have they been able to not only stay afloat, but be in first place despite losing Robinson Cano for that 80-game suspension here?
We have to give them all the credit in the world. What's happening is they're winning a lot of one-run games and close games. Like, they're getting into these games and they're winning them 18-9 in one-run games. They've really shown a lot of fortitude here despite being kind of buffeted by some shots that would have taken out other teams. Is that sort of record in one-run games sustainable? They do have a good closer in Edwin Diaz, a good pen now with Alex Colomé in there. That's usually not the sort of record that's sustainable in the long run. And you look at the team they're ahead of now in the standings by 1 game, the Astros. The Astros have a run differential of plus 122, the best in baseball. The team they're behind, the Mariners, have a run differential of plus 17. So you got a 105 run difference in run differential. These are the sort of things that tend to level out over 162. But having said that, yeah, it's a bit of a surprise that the Astros are not in first place here as we get into June.
Astros 37-24, but the stats make it seem like end of September, that shifts quite a bit when we get there.
Also look at strength of schedule. I mean, this month the Astros played almost only, or essentially only, the Yankees, the Red Sox, and the Indians. Their schedule has a lot of like Royals and Tigers and Rangers and teams like that ahead. I think that there's no reason to panic if you're Houston.
All right, let's shift to the NL East. Braves take 3 of 4 from the Nationals. They retake sole possession of first place in the NL East. What's going on in D.C. there? Obviously, the talk about Bryce Harper is not going away. His status, where he'll be, his future. Do you think this is eventually going to take the toll on this Nationals team?
I don't. I think people have been talking about this for like 3 or 4 years, right? I think that wherever Bryce goes, Bryce goes. I don't think that has a day-to-day impact in the clubhouse. What I do think has a day-to-day impact is this incredible rash of injuries the Nationals have suffered. Injuries is kind of a boring thing to point to for a team's lack of performance, but it's pretty extreme in the Nationals' case, especially in the lineup. If you look at Daniel Murphy, hasn't played yet this year, Adam Eaton, Matt Wieters, Ryan Zimmerman, Howie Kendrick's out for the year. Like half of their starting lineup is currently not playing. So I guess the silver lining is that they're still right in it, and a lot of that has to do with this great pitching staff led by Max Scherzer, Gio Gonzalez, and Steven Strasburg. Now, if those guys get hurt, they might be in trouble. But, I mean, the fact that they have kept pace, sounds funny to say, but kept pace with the incredible Braves at this point with being so depleted, I think it's actually a good sign for the Nationals. And, Bryce Harper is not going anywhere, at least, for the next 4 to 5 months.
Yeah, great pitching has a tendency to keep teams afloat while they deal with injuries to their lineup. Draft night tonight. Tigers, they're in second place. this season, but they hold the #1 overall pick going into the draft tonight. Who should they take with their top pick?
Well, second place in the AL Central is not that impressive this year, unfortunately. They certainly earned that top pick by their performance last year. This is one of those years in which the identity of the #1 pick doesn't seem to be in any doubt. It's like a Steven Strasburg year, a Bryce Harper year. It's almost certainly, like 99% certainly going to be Casey Mize out of Auburn. They say he is the best SEC pitcher in 11 years since David Price came out of Vanderbilt and went to the Rays. Interestingly, a guy who was not even drafted out of high school 3 years later is going to be the #1 pick in the draft. And look, for a rebuilding team, he's very advanced. He could be in Detroit pretty soon, like as soon as next year. So this is the type of thing that could really accelerate a rebuild, as is happening in Detroit, despite their, quote unquote, second place current standing, which I don't think they're much of a threat to make the playoffs.
This is a guy who was pretty good with predictions, though that one's not quite as bold as the one he made last year with the Houston Astros. Of course, Ben Reiter, thanks for being with us, man.
Thanks, Ryan.
All right, some news out of Paris this morning as Serena Williams has withdrawn from the French Open. Now, Serena pulled out prior to her 4th-round match with Maria Sharapova, citing an arm injury for the reason. Serena's return to professional tennis, unranked. She comes out, makes it through 3 rounds, and then says a pectoral injury that's been bothering her forced her to pull out, not being able to serve at all. Robin, when you look at Serena's return to pro tennis here, do you view this as a success, even though it was cut short?
Well, I don't think anytime you're injured, you can view it as a success. You don't want to leave injured because you're dealing with that for a while, and then you have to get back to training and redo getting back on the court, which she had to do. Overall, big picture, as long as that resolves itself, yes, I think it was a success because she proved to herself she could get back there and compete after, of course, going through a rough childbirth situation. But Serena Williams, let's be honest, has nothing else to prove. At this point, it's just about adding more things and more stuff that you go, wow, I can't believe Serena was able to do this.
Yeah, I think this is similar to Tiger Woods in my mind. If you asked Serena if it was a success, she'd say no because she didn't win. I think that's how Tiger would view not winning throughout this comeback, though. I think Serena, like Tiger's doing, has to learn how to win again as this new player, a different stage in her life, physically, emotionally, different priorities. I'm sure she didn't get to train like she usually does for the French Open with everything she had going on. So it's a whole new world. I have a feeling, though, she will be back on top.
She was off to a good start. It just has to be frustrating to deal with an injury.
Yeah, when you're used to winning that much, absolutely. Well, according to an ESPN report, the NBA is considering a new coaches replay challenge system. The league will reportedly test out the new system during the Summer League out in Vegas. Now, they haven't figured out the mechanism yet to alert officials of a challenge, but they are looking at this, and obviously the challenge, the replay issue was in full force in Game 1 of the finals. Do you like this, and what's the best plan here?
I don't like this. For optics, first of all, it just looks more ridiculous for an NBA coach to be throwing a flag out on the court for some reason than an NFL coach. And I think the best solution is, if you're relying on the officials, make the call and go on with it. We don't have to review everything. There can be specified situations for review, but other than that, let's leave it.
I agree. I can see him throwing a pocket scarf on the court. Doesn't look right for a challenge. Yeah. That's going to do it for this Monday edition of SI. Now be sure to join us again, 10:30 a.m. Eastern. We'll be back with you right here on SI.com. We'll see you.